without further ado, great honor, great privilege to invite on stage Shekhar Gupta. Please, sir, come on stage. Thank you so much.
Put these two here. Hi. Shall I call my panelists, Anisha and Sucharita? Eashwar, where are you? I hope you haven't walked out on me. No, you're right. Okay, take your time. So thank you very much. I don't have to give you a very long introduction to this, except to say that one, I am so flattered. It's like addressing a class in Lady Shri Ram College in Delhi. That's the only other time I see a house full of women. And number two, I'm much older than you, and I think I'm older than everybody in this room. And I still want to be loved by women, right? so I'm not complaining about this audience. The second thing is that I've heard some really dismal talk lately about women in the workplace in India. We recently partnered with Harvard University Kennedy School. They produced a new study on women in labor force and workplace. And in fact, they've shown that as educational levels are going up for women in India, their numbers and their percentage in workforce is declining. Now, many of us had issues about it. Some of us thought that maybe their study was not good enough. They were not taking women, counting women who work in villages, who tend after buffaloes or whatever, besides domestic work. But it does seem that the study is quite robust and there is an issue. The other thing that happened recently, please do come in. The other thing that happened, I have started a new sort of event now with my partner, who is a woman and a feminist and considerably younger than me, Barkha Dutt. And the new thing we call is Off the Cuff, OTC. And our first one was with Nikesh Arora. And in that, a woman CEO of an advertising company stood up and said, everybody you mention is male. How come you venture capitalists don't fund any women? And Nikesh always has an answer. So he did give some answer, which one, wasn't convincing. And second, I thought was just, I hope he's not hearing, just a little bit patronizing. So in fact, when that happened, I started searching for women entrepreneurs. It so happened that just after that, I was recording a walk the talk with the two Snapdeal boys in their school. And I said, but where are women entrepreneurs? And then I called my friend Sarita Rai, who's a journalist in Bangalore. I said, are there any women entrepreneurs? So she gave me a couple of names who are here. And she told me about, and Kunal Bell said to me that when nobody would trust us, Vani trusted us. So I got Vani's number and I got, I think, Richa Car's number, and I sent them emails, basically to say, can I connect and maybe chat with you people? And one, look at this question of women not being in entrepreneurship. And second, also to bring out to larger audiences the fact that there are women entrepreneurs. So now I see it's not just one or two or three or four, it's a whole room full of women entrepreneurs. All of you are doing well and booming, and I am so flattered to be here. See, all of us are so used to speaking on what we call, all of you call as manels, panels on which you only have men, right? So this is a special one, which is not a manel, where I am the odd man out, literally. So you know these two, you know Anisha, who's launched Maidala, Sucharita Eashwar, who's now, whose startup is doing mentoring for new entrepreneurs, women entrepreneurs. So they'll both tell you their stories in 3 minutes each. You know, Supreme Court, P. Chidambaram always told me, I used to ask him, why are you so clinical and precise? And he'd say, because Supreme Court teaches you to make your point in 3 minutes. So please do make your point in 3 minutes.
We women are, we like to talk it out. But anyway, some of you know me, some of you don't. I want to give an intro, but I want to talk about myself and tell you my story and how I got started and where Maidala is right now. I grew up in a business family. My father's a very successful entrepreneur, but that wasn't the case when we were growing up. I saw a lot of struggles, and to date, I hate potatoes. because we ate potatoes for every goddamn meal. So I will just loathe them. And I swore to myself, I'll never be an entrepreneur. I'll do anything but be an entrepreneur. Because you see so many highs and lows that I just wanted a consistent paycheck. And that is what I grew up thinking. I was most slated to get married first in college. Everybody assumed I'd get married first. I went to DC, fortunately, for my grad school. And there I had the opportunity to work with Clinton administration, helping women entrepreneurs raise funding. And I saw such fascinating women and doing such cool stuff with, coming up from families where they were beaten up, they still had kids, and just doing phenomenal entrepreneurship, just in general. And I knew that's what I wanted to be. So my first thing is figure out role models. I know the previous panel talked about this, but the minute I had a role model, I just knew this is what I wanted to do. I figured out mentors that helped me, and that's what put me here today. MyDala is my second company. We started it in 2009. So in terms of .com, I'm fairly old compared to everybody else. Age-wise too, I think. Everybody's younger. And we started it, and a year from starting it, we had 52 competitors. And it was just, before that I had run a profitable company. And when we got to the internet space, it just seemed like everybody was raising funding and more funding than us. And there were so many more, well-funded competitors. How were we going to make it in this .com world? And so, pardon the language, but I was really like, screw it. We're going to run this like a true business. And that's what we did. And so from 2009 to 2015, or 16 now, where MyDala is we're in 206 cities. Our biggest competitor was Groupon. They no longer exist. They got bought out, blah, blah, blah. We are a local services marketing platform. We sell 7 million vouchers on a monthly basis. That's 220,000, 50,000 on an average on a daily basis. And we did this without initial funding. This was figuring out a real business model and just running with it. And that's what, I mentor a lot of women now. And they come to me and they keep talking about funding and how are we going to raise this. You know what? Have a business model and a true business model that you can grow. The funding will come. But think about the real, true business model. That's what matters. That's my second point. The third point is very simple. Entrepreneurship is, I haven't ever taken drugs. I'm assuming it's like a drug. It's like an addiction. It gives you highs, it gives you lows, but it's in your system forever. So according to me, your company can have a plan B. You can never have a plan B. You can never. If you have a plan B, you're not going to make a go of the company. I joke about this. I say I'm an overnight success after 6 years. People talk about my success now. It took me 6 years to become an overnight success. You can't have a plan B. It might be a little extreme. Your company can have it. You can't. That better be the thing that you make a go of. You can't let go of your baby. No way. That's pretty much it. So that's me in a nutshell.
Sucharita, I think that's a very good point. An entrepreneur cannot have a plan B, and that reminds me of the story that we hear all the time when you read about Shivaji. This is when Shivaji was assaulting a very difficult fortress, and he wasn't quite sure that his troops, they will first throw the ropes across the walls of the fort and then climb up, and they will have the energy to fight and take the fort. And his mother said to him, once they've climbed up on those ropes, cut the ropes. So when they know they can't come back, they will have to fight. And that's precisely what happened. At least that's how the story goes. And they were able to conquer the fort. So there is no plan B once you are in it. Because I go through some of these doubts all myself. I'm trying to become an entrepreneur now at this age. And I was telling them I'm not even a woman. So life must be tougher for me. Maybe Sucharita will make an exception and mentor me as well. Please go ahead and tell us about your story.
Thank you. That was an inspiring story, Anisha. And my story is a little different. I've been working now for about 30 years. And for the first 15 years of my working life, it was like, if my husband was changing his job or, being transferred, I would scramble to try and get a transfer, or I would try to change my job so that I would go along with him. Then I had my first baby. And I was at that time in advertising. So when I went off to work, very often Maya may be sleeping. And if I worked late and had a shoot, came back home maybe at 11 o'clock, she'd be sleeping again. So then I was like, okay, then why did I have this baby if I don't spend any time with her? And then that led me to do a sidestep. And I took up a job, an offer, which was to set up an NGO. And the office was one room in my house. So I was very happy because it helped me to balance my responsibilities. So after my children grew up, that's when I thought, okay, now I don't have these responsibilities anymore. And somewhere along the line, I also got divorced, so I was a single mom. And I said, okay, now I can think of becoming an entrepreneur. And that's in January this year, I have stepped out and I have set up this platform to help other women entrepreneurs who want to start up, who want to scale up, who want to find funding, who want to use the right technology to scale their businesses. So it's like a one-stop shop. So coming back to my life, I'm now thinking, okay, what if I had asked my husband that you take equal responsibility to be with the baby, so if I'm out on a shoot and I come back at 12 o'clock, it's okay, I know things are handled. Or what if I had stepped out 10 years ago and started this enterprise, which I'm doing now, which, you know, like everyone has been saying, even in these 3 months from January to now in April, it's like highs, lows, everything in between. So it's like being on a drug. When you're low, you're really down there and say, why am I doing this? And when you're up there, it's like, oh, wow, I'm making a difference. I'm really making it. So, you know, this is, you know, the question before me is like, okay, why didn't I think about it 10 years ago? But I think it typically relates to what many women like me face. The cultural barriers. Firstly, we feel that, I used to feel, that we have to be with our families. We also have to take care of these responsibilities. So whatever we do must see that these things are taken care of. And what I now tell a lot of other women as I mentor them is, it's all about putting a system in place, just like you do at work. For the rest of your life also, it's putting up support structures, systems to make things work for you. And that's really what I have learned a bit late in life. And the second thing, why did I not step out? I think highlights another thing which many women face. Many of us are very risk averse. We like to, yes, we would like to start a business, but we would like to self-fund and roll the money, whatever is coming in, and really hesitate to go out even to take a bank loan. So that's another factor which I have seen in my last 4 years of working with women entrepreneurs. We are very averse to taking what we think of as risks. So I'll stop here and go back.
Well, in fact, what you call as risk aversion is actually a sense of responsibility. But I'd say that you are not risking your own money. This is your risk averse about someone else's money. I think a lot of the people, including leading light of this city, Vijay Mallya, tell you that, you know, there is no problem taking risks with other people's money, whether borrowed or invested. So I think it's a good idea if you are responsible for other people's money. And you know, I find some familiarity between your story and mine, in the sense that I started working very young, and I got married very young, and we had kids very young. My kids are now 35 and 30, and I have two kids in law. Right? I was a father at 24. So there was a long period when my wife sort of focused on the children and did take a break from work. And I think in some interview, some magazine really pushed me to say, do you have any regrets in life? It was very difficult for me to find any regrets. So I said, no. But when I was really pushed, I said, I have one regret, that my children's teen years are like a blur to me. Because I was covering one war after the other, Afghanistan, Jaffna, the Gulf, Tiananmen Square. I have no idea what happened to my children in their teen years. So it so happened that when the interview came out, my children were in town and we were having dinner together. And both my children said, so Papa, would you rather that we made our teen years less forgettable for you? So, challenges of bringing up children and running your life and your career as you wish to are there. Now, I'll come and sit in the middle with you because I want a picture taken with me in the middle. For the sake of my two children and children-in-law, if nothing else.
Well, to just take up what Shekhar ji was sharing.
Shekhar.
Well, you're from Delhi, so I know that in Delhi people add G to everybody's name.
And then they poison your lunch. So don't.
Okay, thank you. So Shekhar was sharing about his life and the children. But what I see as for women entrepreneurs now, I like to quote what Charles Dickens said a couple of centuries ago. It's the best of times and it's the worst of times. Yes, in some ways, if you look at the bad news, it's the worst of times. The economy is not doing as well as it should globally. A lot of violence against women, all that story, and a lot of others. But it's the best of times because women are being skilled, educated, equipping themselves, doing fantastic things, especially in our country. And I see a lot of them like you. I mean, it's amazing to see all of you here in this room, and I know there are so many others who are thinking of stepping out, setting up your own enterprises. And the further good news is that there is a lot of support available and resources available, which was not there so even 5 years ago. The government has a whole bunch of programs and schemes to help women entrepreneurs. There are people like K-Start and others who will incubate, who will accelerate a good business idea. There is a platform like the Catalyst for Women Entrepreneurs, which I have, to put everything in one place where you can come and find out what's available, get prepared for funding, find out which government schemes you should apply for. Like, for example, you know, we are taking a delegation of women entrepreneurs to Turkey, which is for a buyer-seller event run by the United Nations. It's called the International Trade Center. And the selected people will be taken there and hosted there by International Trade Center. They will match them with buyers. They will do skill building and training for them in specific areas. And, you know, they will do everything to see that if you are ready for it.
If we had more time, I would have asked you why Turkey, but maybe afterwards.
Look, and the government, the good news is the government has a scheme whereby they will subsidize your travel. So there's a lot of it out there. So
go ahead, I'm watching that.
I'm with Charles Dickens on only the first part of it. It is the best of times.
Yes.
And maybe this is because I'm an eternal optimist. You need to be one if you're an entrepreneur. There is no better time. There is the gender gap between that, we're about 118 years short of covering where the males are. All right? There is no better time. I think we're now going through leaps and bounds just there is so much noise being made. People keep telling me, why is there such noise being made around women entrepreneurship? I think it's an important thing that's happening here. There's actually a real revolution happening here. This noise is important. This noise is important for our future generation. So there's no such thing as a bad time. I think this is the best time. You want to be an entrepreneur, you're thinking about it, do it now. Do it today, because somebody will take that spot. So I think just jump. Don't even think twice. What's the worst that can happen? I mean, we're in India. Go back to your parents' place. US, seriously. India, US, that doesn't even happen. Do this. Give it a go.
Yeah, and think big.
Well, this is very interesting. I know we are out of our time. Out of time. You talked about the worry about not having a monthly salary. In fact, there's a French philosopher whose name I can't forget and I can't access Google now, who said that the three worst addictions in life are sugar, heroin, and a monthly paycheck. Yeah. Right? So it's only after you are freed from a monthly paycheck that you discover the other side to life. Frankly, in my family, three of us have done, my daughter, my wife, and I. And all of us are now entrepreneurs in our own rights. My daughter was a journalist, got fed up of being introduced as a father's daughter. She was on TV. She's become a pastry chef.
She's already brilliant, I can tell.
And a famous pastry chef. And the second thing you said, women have 118 years to catch up. I will also tell you that globally, women live longer than men. Right? And women are much stronger than men.
We're going to do it now. We're covering it in this generation. It's going to happen.
Absolutely.